So we're just going to visit, and you guys just listen in. All right? All right, so very good. First off, I just want to say, I've gotten to know Garrett for, I think 2016 is when we met. If I'm off, I'm not off by much yet. And so the Lord has, just full disclosure, has really touched my heart in terms of relating to you just from the get-go. And that's just, I'm not trying to flatter you or anything else, that's just the truth. And so, have appreciated you so much, and Shelly, beginning to get to know you, and just, you know, anybody that gets to be Garrett's spouse, I'm like, hey, it must be, you know.
I think it's the other way around.
Yeah, I hear you. So, anyway, I just want to do what I can in these moments to help these folks begin to get to know you, okay? And so, at the start here, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you came to life in Christ. Maybe we'll just start there. So,
yeah. Love to. And we just want to say it's such an honor to be here this morning. Thank you so much for having us and hearing us. And we just love Tame, Susie, what God is doing through this church community and their investment. I mean, meeting Tame and his work with the Edmonds School District and the nursery network, he has helped bring the kingdom of God into the Edmonds School District in so many ways that really nobody could really know except for the Lord. But partnership with the church, so can't speak enough about Tame. Love to share a little bit of my story. I grew up in Edmonds, Washington. This is my hometown. I was born and raised here. And it is amazing that the Lord has called us back to be pastors in your hometown. It is quite funny. There is a guy that I went to high school with, that his mom is a member at our church. So you got to think about me causing trouble in high school. Me and Andrew, now Mrs. Pryor, comes to our church, you know. And so she'll come, hey, you know, Pastor Garrett, great preacher. I'm Mrs. Pryor, you know. You know, I'll run into like my elementary school teachers, and it's just I think it's a great way for the Lord to keep me humble. You know, it's like they know my past, and so I would love to share my past with you. Grew up in Edmonds here. Grew up in a small little Lutheran church on Five Corners, and my parents were Christians, and trying to raise my sister and I as much in the ways of the Lord as they knew, and that church community was really sweet and great. But 70% of the congregation was over 70 years old, and so I was one of just a few kids there, and they were just such a loving community. But my pure relationships were really met at school. So I went to public school my whole life, and so was growing up on Sunday and hearing the gospel and hearing the Bible, but most of the week not hearing that, and growing up in the cultural waters of the Pacific Northwest, and really kind of came to a crux. And when I was going into college, about being, what is life about? What do I care? What do I actually think and believe? And I was first really intrigued that my heart was open to the gospel of Jesus. You know, you're thinking through, hey, you're supposed to go to college and you're supposed to study something that you're interested in. And I just remember really thinking the only thing that I'm interested in is to find out if Jesus is real. If he's real. I've heard about him my whole life. I know some facts about him. His birthday's around Christmas, you know, all this, but I don't know him. And so in my, flawed 18-year-old mind, I was like, if I want to learn about Jesus, I got to go where he is, and he must be at a Christian university, you know. And we know that God's everywhere, but that was where my mind went. And so, long story short, I ended up at Azusa Pacific University in Southern California, and just really encountered God. He met me there. I started to get to know him, started to love his word, and started growing in God. He pulled me out of that, mostly because of financial situations. Private Christian school is expensive. I don't know if you know this. It's very expensive. And so couldn't afford it anymore. That's what brought me back to Seattle. So here I have this new life in Christ. I'm excited. I've been growing with this community in Southern California. Brought back to Seattle. And I had one Christian friend that I had met in high school. And he was going to this little church in Seattle called Mosaic. And so I was like, what do? I don't know what to do with my life. I have to move back to Seattle. And he's like, hey, why don't you move in to this house of guys that go to Mosaic and come to this church and go to community college. And Peter Orblad and I were actually roommates in that house. Not roommates anymore, but we would do it. We would do it if we had to, you know. And this is just where like things started clicking. Wow, Jesus is alive. He is the master, he is the rabbi, he is the good teacher, he is the good shepherd. And just my whole life being oriented around that in this community. And from then on, it's just been like the next step. Hey God, what are you taking me into? I didn't ever think full-time ministry or pastoring would be necessarily my story, but it's just what I've been trying to do. And just as we've tried to be led by the Lord, step by step, this is where He's taking us. And part of that was moving back to Edmonds to help plant the Mosaic in Edmonds. And man, it's been an amazing journey. Like, still excited, still on the edge of my seat every day when following Jesus. And so that's obviously a lot more in there, but a small picture of me. So, yeah.
I am originally from Texas. It's where I grew up. I was born and raised there. And with great parents, believers, grew up in church. I had one older sister. And I would say that I knew the Bible, I knew, Christianity, but really had not made that personal decision to follow Jesus. And I always kind of was like rebellious, willful, just like a really stubborn, independent child. And so as I grew up, that turned into a lot of rebellion. And in high school and into my college years, actually really decided, because I was kind of like, okay, well, I have this this foundation kind of in Christianity, this knowledge of it, but I was not living that out, and I knew that. And I was like, this is not okay. I can't just be Christian and do all the wrong things. And so I kind of had this moment that I was just like, well, I tried, and I mean, it's totally the enemy, but I just was like, well, I tried and God just didn't care. So He's not helping me, so I guess I'm just not going to heaven. I'm going to hell. Like, that's really kind of what I was just like, I have no control over this, so I'm just not a Christian anymore. And just really walked away from the Lord. And when I share my testimony, there's a lot to it, a lot of partying, a lot of just like getting into destructive lifestyle. And it really, that decision point was a point for me that my life went from dark to pitch black. Just nothing mattered anymore. And it was really, a hard few years in college. And then in my junior year of college, just had a really powerful encounter with God. Like, there's no explanation other. I was sitting with a non-believing friend, had kind of hit a rock bottom in my life, and just had a revelation from the Lord that He was real, that He loved me, that He was giving me a chance for a different life. And that was kind of that moment that I was like, I want that, I need that. And so I responded to Him in that moment, and there's a lot of story to it, but my parents were always believers, but I think the journey that I took, they saw, that I wasn't following the Lord, that I wasn't choosing that in my life, and I think that brought a lot of brokenness for them, and for my sister as well, who had been following the Lord also. And so they had been praying, they had been gathering community to pray, like it really was, I really believe that a lot of things that could have permanently damaged my future did not happen to me because I was covered in prayer by my family. Just really believe God's protection was on my life, even in the midst of me not hearing. And so when I decided to follow Jesus, encountered Him, went to my family, kind of confessed everything that had been going on, repented to them, lots of tears. I got baptized, started following God, which wasn't perfect, and I'm still learning to follow Him, but love Him so much. And so that was in college, and I went to Baylor University in Texas. I graduated, and when I started following Jesus, I got involved with Antioch, which is a part of Mosaic's movement of churches in the U.S. And so I got involved there at that church. I went through a 9-month discipleship training program after I graduated, which was really impactful and really kind of helped set a foundation of truth in my life and just in relationship with Jesus. And that year, kind of prayed through and felt like I was supposed to move to Seattle after the school. And so I moved up here, and Seattle Mosaic already existed. And so I came and was like, great, this is a part of our movement of churches. It feels like family, it feels familiar. So came up here in 2009, and Garrett had already been involved with the church for a couple of years, and that's actually where we met. He was still in college. I'm a few years older, so he was still in college, and a couple of years into living here, we started dating, and then eventually got married. This is kind of going in and out. And kind of like Garrett said, I think we never really thought like, oh, we're gonna go be pastors or we're gonna go do full-time ministry. But we always, both of us, I think, since deciding to follow Jesus, have just really loved the church. And, kind of started out as just super volunteers. What do we, how can we help? How can we be a part? And we're involved in small groups and leading small groups and just kind of, and then we ended up coming up to Edmonds and helping start the Mosaic that we now lead. It just has kind of been this journey over the years of God calling us in deeper. And that's not the case for everyone, but that's just what his journey has been for us, and it's been really sweet. So.
One detail, I didn't know Shelly when she came to our Lord, but I love this detail of her story. She encountered God at a party, and then got baptized soon after. All of her party friends came to this baptism of Shelly and celebrated, and then they all had a kegger after. It was Shelly's baptism kegger, So just an amazing, where the life that she was in, and just where God pulled her out of, and it's just a fun story. Her testimony is way better than mine. You should ask her. So
no, it's wonderful. Thank you both so much for sharing, and it's just fantastic to see where God finds us and where he takes us, right? And so thankful for his work in both of your lives. So yeah, and then you guys have some kiddos, right? So yeah, if you want to kind of intro everybody for us.
Absolutely, they're right up here in the front row. You got the oldest up here, Roy. Can you wave your hand, Roy? There he is, Roy. Willie.
7.
Yeah, 7. Willie's 5 over here. And then Rocky, can you wave your hand? Yeah, you got it. Rocky's 3 years old. So love those guys. We have a busy household. There's a lot of active. We thought we would have 2 kids. We grew up in 2-kid families. And then the day that Shelly gave birth to Willie, she was like, I don't think we're done.
It was a God thing.
And
it was minutes after giving birth. And I was like, I want one more. I was like, this is great.
I was like, I think you're crazy. But then prayed through it and really felt like there was something else. So we are done now, if you're wondering.
All right. Well, we're thankful for you all, and thank you for being here, you guys. And that's some good hand raising, and way to go. So after our second, by the way, Susie said to me, just a point of connection here, that's reversed from you guys. So she goes, now, in a little bit, I'm going to want to have another one, and you need to stop me. We need to not, I do not want to do this again. But we did, thankfully, and so there's Nicole. So we're super glad that we're out that way. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit just about you guys. And what part of Texas? I know you went to school at Baylor.
Yeah, Dallas area is where
Dallas, all right. Last time I was in Dallas, it was over 100 every single day that I was there. And I was like, I will be glad to get back to Seattle. Yeah.
I love it here.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it there too, but I was like, we could just knock 20 degrees off of this, and I'm in, yeah. So, all right, so thank you so much for sharing. You guys mentioned not only how God turned your life around, but the role of Mosaic in that. And so we would love to know just a little bit more about Mosaic Church itself, and specifically Mosaic here, where you guys are serving. And so if you could just share with us more about Mosaic. I got a couple little stats up there, and then if anybody wants to, that is their website that's highlighted there on the top of that slide, just mosaicnorth.org, so you can dive in a little deeper there too. But if you guys could tell us a little bit about Mosaic, what it means to you, etc.
Yeah, I'll take you back to when I first got involved with Mosaic. I mean, it was probably 40 people. What do you think, Peter? Around then. Mostly young people in Seattle. We were meeting at a bar on Capitol Hill at the time, at night. And we would rent there on Sundays, and then mostly it was small groups throughout the city. And I think what initially really impacted me about this people was that they seemed to really love Jesus. This wasn't manufactured, it wasn't obligatory, it was they really loved Jesus on Sunday, and then I lived with a bunch of them, and I would go to life group or go to school with them, and it was oh, you love Jesus here as well. It wasn't just hey, we kind of do it in our Christian community. It was we're doing this all the time. And I think one way that really was shown to me was how they wanted to share the gospel. and how as we were reading the words of Jesus and him going out and making disciples and caring for other people. And just from the context that I grew up in, it was like, oh, church is a Sunday thing, and you turn your Christian self on in these environments, and then you're kind of different out there. It was like there was this consistency. And I just had never seen that before and was very challenged by that. And I was like, oh, I've got to pick up on this. Like, this is like the culture of this church family. And also just the big dreams and visions. And the vision of Mosaic, of really all the Mosaic churches, is to love God, love people, and change the world. We say this every single Sunday. We hope that our members will be able to like say it in their sleep. And really what we mean by that is, first, like loving God. We take this straight from Jesus. If you look at Matthew 22, he's asked, hey, what are the 2 greatest commandments? And the first one, Jesus says, is love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. I think this is from Deuteronomy 6:5. And it talks about all these different parts of your body, your mind, your strength, and everything you are to really love Jesus. And we try to live this out. We try not to just have this be something we say, but we actually experience it. And I think one way that I think about it is when people interact with anyone from our church, because Mosaic, like a church is more than a building, it's a people. And so yes, we meet right now at Chase Lake Elementary School. It has like the space we meet. But Mosaic is this people, and so as they go out, I would hope people, others that aren't from Mosaic or whatever, that they would interact with our people, and they would really get the sense, man, this person really loves Jesus. And it's not just lip service, like it is like their life looks like Jesus. And so when we're talking about loving God, it's not just this coming and worshiping and reading your Bible, and those are all great things to love Jesus, but it's like everything, my life is giving off the fragrance of Jesus. And we do this because he first loved us, absolutely. He is the one that so radically loved us, and so we get to just reflect that back in a small way. And really, right now, what we're preaching on at church is like living out the commands of Jesus. Jesus even says that if you love me, you'll live out my commands. If you say that you really do love me and care about me and care about the things that I care about, then you should live out my commands. And so we're trying to like actually put that into practice right now. And so that's just seeing that in this people was like very just attractive to me. I was like, I want to be a part of this. I want my life to look like this. And so that's the first part of vision, is to love God. The second is to love others as ourselves. Again, Jesus in Matthew 22, when he's asked, hey, what's the greatest commandments? It's love God and then love your neighbor as yourself. And man, we try to do this in all sorts of ways, and serving the needy and caring for those and sharing the gospel. I mean, this is probably the first way to really share in love with other people. To love other people is to share the gospel with them, like the one that loves them the most. And then we practically try to do that through small group community and living and doing life together intentionally and trying to have our lives look like him and caring for others. And so we try to do this in all sorts of different ways, sharing the gospel and doing outreach and doing kids ministry and having all these different programs. But we really do want to be ones that love others really well. One way that I like to think about this is our city and our region. Our city and region might not agree or believe the things that we believe. In fact, I would say they probably don't. However, I would love our city and our region to be happy that we're here because of the way that we're loving other people really well. They say, hey, maybe we don't agree with your philosophy and your ideology, but you guys love people really well, so we're happy you're here. And so I think this would be like a sign or evidence of wow, we are loving others well. So we're trying to love God, we're trying to love others, and we're trying to go change the world. And I just remember being 40 people in this bar in Seattle in 2012 or whatever it was. No, even earlier than that, 2010. And we're saying, we're going to go change the world. And I remember saying that and believing it, but I didn't really know if it was going to happen. And we're like, what we mean by changing the world is we want to see disciples made. Think about Matthew 28. Jesus says, go make disciples of all nations. And then Acts 1:8, he talks about going to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And so it's kind of this multi-layer, hey, go out in your local region, in your city, in your nation, and to the nations of the earth. And so we try to keep those different tiers in mind as we're going to change the world. So we're committed to the nations of the earth. We try to send a lot of missionaries to people and to places that don't have access to the gospel. So we've got missionaries in India right now, in Morocco, and in Tunisia, and Egypt, and the Philippines, and all over, these places where they don't have access to the gospel. We want to send missionaries, people that are ready to go out to go share to those people. We're committed to like our region. And this is where this gets a little confusing. I hope to quickly explain here. We have multiple different Mosaic churches in the area. So we have Mosaic North, which is Edmonds. We have the one in Seattle, which was the original church plant. We have one in Bellevue called Mosaic Eastside. We just planted 2 Sundays ago, planted a church in South Seattle. And then we're going to this summer plant a church in West Seattle. Now, what we're doing there is planting local autonomous churches that share a name and share a vision and value, but are completely separate. So we want to stay connected together to encourage one another, to support one another, but to have enough autonomy that each local church can really focus on the area and the city that they're in. So I'm so excited about what God is going to do in West Seattle, and I'm mostly just going to pray for that church community. And I'm not going to have any sort of like leadership in that. That's going to be for that local team. But excited that we get to be a part of that. And so the Mosaic family of churches has a vision to, in the next 25 years, we'd see 100 churches planted in kind of the Seattle region. Some of you probably read recently that Seattle Times article. This is the most unchurched city or region in America.
That's right.
And we see that, and we're like, we want to step into that. Like, we want to change the world. We want to change the world right here. And so we're going to do our best to plant more local autonomous churches that have similar values and visions and love for Jesus and love for others, so that we can see the kingdom of heaven come to this region. And so we're committed to the Pacific Northwest. And then our church, Mosaic North, is super committed to South Snohomish County. Like, this is our territory that we get to invest in, and we're fully focused on that. And when I think about the kingdom of heaven coming to South Snohomish County, I think about Isaiah 61, right? It's the good news is being preached to the poor. The captives are being set free. The brokenhearted are being mended. And God's bringing joy. And being a church where that people are coming in and experiencing Jesus and being set free in that way. And so we want to be those people here. And we're so excited about the other churches and what God is doing here, and want to partner with them. But feel like this is our place. This is the place that the Lord has planted us and established us, and want to be very intentional about that. And so coming to Mosaic, again, sitting in this bar at Capitol Hill with 40 people, we're saying the same thing. We're going to love God. And we're like, okay, we can do that. And we can love God. We're going to love others. And we're like, we love each other here. And we're trying. We're trying to go on Capitol Hill. We're sharing the gospel with people. And they don't really seem to think that's loving. But we think it is. So we're going to keep doing that. And then we're going to change the world. We're going to send missionaries. And we're going to send church plants. And I'm like, sure. That sounds good. And to be here, to see 4 different churches, a 5th church coming out, missionaries overseas, it's just amazing what God's doing. And to be a part of that, and to just look back and be in awe of what he's done. And so, I don't know if you have anything else to kind of add. Okay, sorry, I talked for a long time. Yeah.
No, that was good. And really, I'm mindful of, Jesus often used illustrations of things starting really small, right? And then growing and growing and growing. And so just see that very much in the great way. And we don't want to despise the beginning of things and the small things and everything else, because God is up to big stuff and great stuff. Even in the DNA, if you will, in that bar on Capitol Hill, working with you guys, and you're like, I'm not sure. He was up to good work, and it's already bearing fruit and continues to bear fruit. And so, thank you for sharing that. And then, and whichever or both, or how do you? So we've known each other personally for some time, and we're all of us. I think everyone here, at least everyone I know that's here. We're all kingdom people. We're all in the same family. We're all the same, we all, by God's grace, for God's glory, are head over heels in love with Jesus, and we really, really, really genuinely want to follow him. And so, what leads you to think, hey, maybe I'll, you guys approached us about it, sort of why, and not just why, and how do you envision partnering more closely together, accentuating, improving the great trajectory you guys are really already on?
Yeah, great question. So our church, this Mosaic North Church in Edmonds, was planted in 2014. And man, we had like 12 people and maybe like $25,000, like very limited resources, and was like, I don't even know if this is going to happen. And the Lord has been faithful. Like, if there's one thing, we didn't plant the church. We helped plant the church, but we were not the founding pastors. The founding pastors are actually still at the church. They transition leadership, and they still love being there, and they serve. And I think that's just a beautiful story of just the culture that they helped create, that we get to carry on, of like really loving and caring for each other really well. And so over these last 11 years, we've kind of sensed the Lord leading in some specific areas. And so 2 years ago, we decided, hey, we want to put some language, and we actually just want to make a list of the things that we feel like God is specifically calling us to believe for in the short term. And so we call this list our Big Five. These are Big Five impossible things that we feel like the Lord has spoken to us about or leading us towards that we want to just put out. So I'll go through the Big Five for you, and that'll lead to Tam's question, I promise. One of the things on the Big Five was to have a building. We feel like the Lord was calling us to have like a church home, a place where we could gather, and just like any one of us has a home, where we could host other people and have events. And I know like a building sometimes can, for churches, like end up being like an idol or a burden or whatever. Like, we want to use it as a tool for the advancement of his gospel and his kingdom. And so that was one thing. We're like, okay, how is he going to do that? Like, Lord, we believe you. That feels crazy. We don't like have a ton of money just to buy something, but we trust you with that. Another thing, the second thing it's not in any particular order, but I'll just go through 1 through 5. The second thing was 300 people on a Sunday. 300 people that are gathering, worshiping Jesus and loving him. And this is like 300 people, not just like church transfers. There's a lot of people that are moving to the Pacific Northwest and need a church home, and we're happy that they can find home here. But we want to see like new believers, people who like didn't know Jesus before, come to know him, and then be part of our like worshiping family and congregation. So to have 300 people on a Sunday. The next one was 25, 18 to 22-year-olds. And this one felt like really impossible. We had been trying to get that age group for a long time. We were doing outreaches at Edmonds College, trying to find this population. I knew from census data that kind of group of people, that demographic, was in our region, but I could not find them. And I was like, all right, how are we going to do this? Like, I know statistically it's here, but like, how can we do this? And that God has just absolutely broken the door open on that, mostly through Tim and Libby's kids, who are in that age range. And we went from like, when we were talking about the Big Five, I think Isaac was his first, that's Tim's son, was like the first one. That was his first Sunday. And now we have 40 of them gathering weekly in a house church that is happening here in Lakewood. I mean, just amazing. From like, we didn't have any clue. We tried for years to find this age group, and then God just opened it up. The third thing would be to have, on average, the third thing is to send 10 people out to church planning or for missions. From our local community. This is the fourth thing. Sorry, we're working on number 4. Thank you. This is why Shelly's here. The fourth thing, to send 10 people out to missions or church planning. And again, 2 years ago, we didn't really have any, and now we have sent 8 people out to church planning in South Seattle and to the nations of the earth. And then the last one is, on average, that we would see somebody come to know the Lord every single day of the year. So on average, over a year, we see 365 people come to know Jesus. And we're not super close to that right now. I think we had like 3 people last year. So that one feels super intimidating. Like, hey, every day, on average, we're going to see someone come to know Jesus. And statistically, that's like not enough. If you look at the numbers of the area and the people who don't know Jesus and aren't part of a church, like every church could see like 3 people come to know Jesus, and that would maybe start like making a difference. And so when you just look at the sheer numbers of it, that's not enough. But when you look at the practicality of the culture that we live in, you're like, this feels challenging, and God has to do it. And so I think what's beautiful about this Big Five is like we are putting effort towards trying to make these things happen, and I'm like, God, you just gotta do it. Like you've got to show up, you've got to move in people's hearts. And so as we've been strategizing and planning towards the Big Five, we're thinking about, hey, a church home, and how this does the Lord want to do this? And we didn't really feel like it was, hey, just raising a bunch of money and buying a new property and like making it into a church. I mean, that just costs a lot of money. And I was just like, is there a way to partner with a church of like heart, like mind, that we could help kind of carry their legacy into the next generation, to carry on what they've been doing and they've been investing in for a long time? Is there a way that we could partner in that? And just through our relationship and knowing Tame and hearing about what's happening here, we were just wondering, hey, I wonder if this is that opportunity. And so that was where we approached Tame and said, hey, we have this vision. We want to keep going forward. We want to see South Snohomish County reach for the kingdom and the gospel. And we wonder if God wants to do that through like one church kind of carrying on from another. And just to see where you guys were at and see if that was a possibility. And so I think that was the context of it, of like, hey, this big dream, this big vision that God's put on our heart, God, how are you wanting to do this? And being like, I wonder if this is the plan. So I guess what we have been proposing and talking about is really that Mosaic would, and in the language that's been coming to mind is adoption to me, is if Mosaic would adopt Metadata Community Church, to not clear out, to not say, hey, we need to like tear everything down and rebuild, but no, to actually carry on what y'all have been investing in for a long time, what Tim and Susie have done such a great job facilitating, overseeing. Could we have the honor and privilege to kind of carry on the heart here, to see God do amazing things in South Snohomish County under the name of Mosaic and the leadership, but with the same heart and value of going forward. And so I think that's we could definitely talk more specifics, and I got lots of different dreams and visions and how that worked. And I want to say this. I know that proposal and change can be like scary. The church that I grew up in did something similar to this. It just was getting to a spot where, like, hey, we want to figure out what's next, and there was an opportunity for them to do something very similar. And I'm an optimistic person, especially when it comes to change. We've done some big changes in our lives, and I think it's kind of exciting and fun. And so I'm like, I wonder what's going to happen. I'm optimistic that things are going to work out. And I remember having very specific conversations with like my parents and grandparents and some of the people at the church that were like, hey, we wonder and kind of think this might be what God is doing, but there was a lot of grief, and there was a lot of unknowns, and a lot of fear in the change. And so I'm sure there's all sorts of feelings happening here as we talk about it. As you heard from Tame last week, as we're here right now, like, who are these young people that are up here, and why does he have a mustache? All these things, that are going through your mind. And I totally recognize that, and we want to be so sensitive. And if this is what the Lord is doing, like, we want to care and have so much compassion through this whole process. So, I don't know if you have anything else you want to say.
I think just the one thing I would say, I mean, truly, I think our prayer in all of this, we just keep praying, like, God, would you just bring our hearts in line with your will? Like, would his way forward is going to be best for both of our churches just be what moves forward, and really believing that he is over any change that might happen, and just trusting him in that. So
yeah, I think agreeing with God together is the way. Yeah. And so thank you for that. And just one thing that I would say about that I have appreciated just generally about Mosaic, and of course I don't know Mosaic anything like you guys do, but it's just the expectancy that I see. Most everyone I meet or engage with from Mosaic, there's just this expectancy that God's doing great things, and he's going to keep on doing great things. I mean, it might not always be mountain high every day or anything like that, but there's just this sense of,
we're in the stream of what God's doing, and it's exciting, and we expect him to keep doing great things. And so that's an encouragement for me personally.
So why don't we talk just a little bit? I think, are we close to noon? I lose track of time. Okay. Did anybody see pizza arrive?
I sent mine up there.
Okay, I don't know if the pizza guy is supposed to be here, but anyway. So here's what I'd like for us to do. This is basically just for you guys just to start to get to know Garrett and Shelly just a little bit, their heart for the Lord, their heart for missions.
One thing that's thrilling to me is the missionaries that you guys have sent out and that kind of work. It is also a great, I'm aware that not only is God sending people out to the nations, God is also bringing the nations to our neighborhoods, right? And such a heart that we have just collectively as a church. And I realize we're numerically at a small ebb at the moment and that kind of thing. But historically, our heart has been and continues to be, is that we want to have just as wide open of invitation to the widest group of people from the widest number of backgrounds imaginable. You know, we talk about we want to extend love's open invitation, right, to everybody. And then also too, we don't just want to have inclusion for the sake of inclusion alone. We want to see people deeply involved in life together, you know, and this shared hope that we have bonding us together and building us together as really one new people in Christ. And then of course we want to also mobilize and send out those people that that just have an extra unction or heart to serve and to extend the kingdom. And so as I listen to you guys, the thing that hits me a little bit is, you know, we've articulated a lot. We've seen God work in our midst in ways as well, even though it's the scale is smaller, just numerically. But I see real similarity and I see real alignment. And so prayerfully what that basically means is, whether we're articulating or not, is that, you know, God's already in the process of getting us all on the same page. And so then it's just a matter of, okay, well, what's that look like next? You know? And so thank you both so much for sharing. Is there anything either of you would like to add at this time? Because what I'd love for us to do now is just observe the Lord's Supper together, and I'd like for us all to kind of work together toward that end. But any parting shots or food for thoughts or anything?
Yeah, one was Tim was sharing me like the values of this church. Show his love, share his truth, you know. And I was like, man, it's just different words, but it's the same heart. I was definitely just want to affirm and agree on that. And just like we are open. We want to talk. Please, let's get some pizza. Let's get some another time. Like we want to do life with people, and so if there's questions, we'd love to talk more about it. And we're considering together like what God has for the future. And love for all of us to have a part of it. And just thank you so much for letting us hijack your Roman series and to take the time to hear us. I know it's kind of a strange thing to have somebody come in and what's going on here. So thank you so much. You've been really gracious. But yeah, let's do the Lord's Supper.
No, thank you so much. And then one thing else I put out there, Coley, if you could, is just, we've run through this, but here's basically what I see, just big picture so everybody knows. If we're talking about Mosaic and Meadowdale working together, adoption, whatever language we want to put around that, all of our partnerships that we currently have for mission support, all that continues. It's very critical to us that our heart has been to try to be a blessing to and create an environment in which our brothers and sisters at Tabernacular Familia de Dios can flourish and grow and do well as our brothers and sisters at Global Mission Church, which is the Korean congregation. Yeah. And so we want to preserve and protect all of that. And so I've appreciated the heart to do the same. So those would continue. We would simply kind of add to a lot of what God's doing in and through Mosaic, whether it's with the church planting and missionaries.
That does include discipleship training. That's an important part of what you guys do, and so for those that have been looking for additional equipping and so on, that's a 9-month, if I'm not mistaken, opportunity there. Children's ministry. We might be looking around and going, wow, well, if there's 50 kids or whatever, where do they all go? And there's some logistical stuff, right? So if we're not going to do 300 at the exact same time in this space right here, unless we are, uncomfortably close physically. Yeah. So, so there's all kind of little logistical things and all that kind of stuff. But it would include a worship team, children's ministry, student ministry, young adult mission, mission training school. Big picture, long term. We've talked a little bit, at least, about property improvements and vision for that kind of stuff. And then another little aspect of it that's personal to Susie and I. We've wondered for a long time. We got, I'm not going to get into the story, but we got caught in a little recession moment that messed us up with our housing a little bit. And so we've been like, we're not expecting to retire any moment here, but, we're getting closer and closer, and we don't own a home, and we don't, what are we, and so included in all of this conversation, and I did not bring it up, this was brought, it includes doing what we can to help me take care of our family and so on, and so appreciate that as well. All right, well, why don't we close and have Lord's Supper? I just want to remind everybody this is basically the big picture structure of what we're talking about. Garrett, would you be so kind as to close us out in prayer, ask the Lord's blessing on the Lord's Supper? We'll observe it just like we typically